All right, welcome to the Chow Pod. This is Victor's son. I'm the CEO here for Channel Automation. I've got two of our guests here today, Iván and Antonio. They're going to introduce themselves, but you're going to be wanting to listen into this entire podcast right here. We're going to be talking about creative content and how that really is the secret thing that most companies don't know about, should be doing to increase their lead generation and conversion. Hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. And if you want more of these really cool things, follow us, subscribe for us. And here we go. We got Antonio and Iván here. Welcome, guys, to the Chow Pod.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Vic.
Oh, thanks for indulging us. Right. So tell us a little bit about yourself here. Maybe we start off here with Antonio.
Well, we're both from the Höski team. I'm the CEO. Ivan's the account manager, and yeah, I mean, I'll let him introduce himself, of course. But we're really happy to be here, and we've been working on some really great projects together, and this is all coming to a head. So we're here to share some nuggets and some knowledge, and hopefully get people to invest in their creative.
Hi, I'm Iván Rasgado. I'm the account manager here at Höski. I'm basically in charge of everything that has to be with the client side and making sure that the creatives are on point. So kind of like a quality check so that all of our creatives are top notch as our clients deserve. So yeah, thank you for having us in the pod, Vic, and we're excited to share what we usually use in our daily workload.
Yeah, and this is really something that I think it isn't talked about in many industries, especially the ones that we work with. The industries that really just focus on lead generation or relying on sales or marketing or call centers. Typically, they really invest a lot in non-creative, non-content stuff. And so I think one of the things that it's not a new topic, but we should provide some context maybe, but also what is causing this thing where companies who want to generate more leads, more sales, more revenue, how come creative and content is the last thing that they're investing in, or one of the last things in their investment priorities?
For me, it's just simply the last in line of the construction pipeline. There's a lot of concerns when building a product, and people are always putting the creative to the end, which is not necessarily a bad thing because it's really two different teams that should handle it. Like when there's the product build and then the launch, it's just two different things. So I believe it's the natural order, but it's something that really needs to be invested in and looked in and strategized about.
Yeah, exactly. So what I think about this is basically I look at it as an engineer versus a musician's part of things, or a creative, or like a writer or something. There's an inherent like way of working it that it's not necessarily interchangeable. So the people that are working on the product side or the creation of a product, the functionality and everything, are not necessarily creative people in the terms of how to give the message to other people, right? They're masters at actually creating something that's working to solve a certain problem, but that's on the actual product thing. So how do you take that product and convince people, or make them see your product as a solution? That's a completely separate thing. That's a completely separate story. So that's why some people or some companies actually focus more on the first part, which is the hardest. Have a great product before you're actually going to sell it. They think selling is the easy part, which is absolutely not. But they put it on the side because they're thinking about having a great product first.
That's interesting when you guys talk about how it is the last thing on, or usually it's not prioritized. And then you talk about decision makers who are making these decisions. So I have a story, that I like to tell when it comes to these things. So, many years ago when I was an executive, and, we were killing it, with everything that we were doing in marketing, but our focus really was how do consumers, who are humans, right? Homo sapiens, how do they become enticed with this product or the service that we're providing? And so my team invested a ton of like bringing in creative people. And so, obviously, even as an executive, you have a board, and so you have to go and present this. And the people who make the final decisions on the money aspect are typically the COO or the controller or the accountants, right? And it's interesting how the first thing that they don't understand, which is the creative and the content, is also the only thing that they're interested in making that decision when it comes to cost. And so the questions that came about, so we had this really cool campaign. We tested it, it was working, and we said we want to really launch it, across the entire state of California. And when we were presenting, their questions were, we don't understand. And this came from the controller and the accounting team and the COO. We can't understand how you're attributing the creative and the content to the conversion, because in their minds, it had to be manifested neatly on a field on a spreadsheet that went, if I spent this amount of money on a creative, surely it would affect this directly. But you couldn't really do that, right? You couldn't really attribute, okay, we chose a female, um, you know, representative for this image, and this image was the reason why most people were responding positively. Like, that was difficult to do back then, and I think it's still difficult to do now. But that was a stumbling block. And I think the question becomes, and I want to throw this back to you guys, how many companies have their accounting team, their COO, the CFO, the COO making these decisions or not making these decisions, but they're really not the people, because they're logical people, right? They're really not the people who even understand this. So, how is that affecting the decisions of companies when the people making the decisions have no business understanding this? What do you guys think?
Like you said, these are logical people, and I go back to my analogy of musicians versus engineers. They don't see the process behind the creation. They don't see the thought process behind the creation. They This is something that's a pretty stereotypical joke for a client designer relationship, that they say, okay, I want a design from you. And what they picture is, we open Photoshop, we go to file, create amazing design that sells 1 million of this product, and we're done.
Yeah.
They don't see that thought process. So as they're
And
not familiar with that, they cannot like consensuously, or I don't know what the word will be, say, okay, I believe this will work, or let's adjust this, or they cannot envision how the campaign is going to perform, basically.
yeah, it
So
is a yin and the yang situation, and we need both to create the perfect balance. So, I mean, similarly, as there are aspects on the design team that, you know, that aren't visible at first glance, it's same on the other side, and both parties need to get together on that, and what is the KPI and how can we be creative in achieving it. And that's usually when the best and campaigns kind of roll out, when we have that synergy. So
Yeah, it's an interesting way of making these decisions when you're a company, right? Like, because typically a lot of the companies that come to us and say, "Hey, we need help. We're trying to generate more leads, convert better." And the content and creative question almost never comes up, or they don't even look at that as an issue.
yeah, I mean, it's a great way to use, to build trust and to educate your customer and to just go that extra mile when it comes to the experience that you're providing and how you're delivering it. Like, we see different companies leveraging the content in different ways, even to build a company culture. And, there's a lot of ways that this can be leveraged.
Yeah, I agree on leveraging it. I think it's definitely something that companies, you know, there's results from it. There's reasons why advertising agencies, they're able to put these things together and then cleverly sell products, or at least create these consideration and the awareness. I think the problem across many industries is that when you're trying to solve a problem at the level it was created, you're not really doing anything different, and you're not going to solve that. And I tell this story a lot for people. I
Yeah.
say this two guys, they go out camping in the forest, and then when they're camping, tents are set up, everything, and they start seeing this tiger, right, a couple, about a click away, coming at them. So one of the guys starts putting on his shoes, his sneakers. He's about to take off, and the other guy goes, "What are you doing? You can't outrun a tiger." And then the other guy goes to him, he goes, "I know that. I don't have to outrun the tiger. He doesn't have to eat both of us. I just need to outrun you." And that's upstream thinking, right? That's I think Dave Trott, you're super, a big fan of him. I'm a fanboy of his work, and he says you've got to have that predatory thinking. And so if your competitors are doing what everybody else is, and like, let's just buy more leads, let's just use more quantity of text or emails or phone calls, then if you're a company and you want to dominate, do what they're one of the easiest things you could do to innovate is to not do what they're doing. You know what I mean? To
It's
not be like them. And I think that's where the content and the creative come in, because if most of them, if not all of your competitors, aren't investing on that, that would be the innovative thing to do. Since nobody else is investing in that, let me invest in this. And then
exactly.
I stand out. But the fact remains is this, like, you mentioned engineering and engineers making decisions when they're not really, you know what I mean? So they're so geared towards the attribution and the numbers and all of this stuff. But how do companies, like, in your experience, what have you seen where you've spoken to companies and then you can make it work, but the decision maker was the accountant or the CFO or the money guy, and they had no clue as to what this content creative was and how you were able to either overcome it or how it just failed altogether because you couldn't overcome them being too focused on the logic aspect.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's uh that's an interesting one. I mean, it happens for different reasons. To be honest, the big reason why content usually doesn't work, and there's like kind of a negative stigma around it, I think that's being lifted recently, is that most content doesn't get launched. That's the reality. And it is oftentimes for because of the decision makers and how they feel and things that are really not based in any kind of sound logic. So getting outside the shell and leveraging content, as long as you're clear as to what your offer to the market is and how you're going to get it out there, you just have to pick the format, which it can be a podcast, it can be a pitch deck, it can be a video, an SMS campaign, and then bringing that to the market. When we see that, we usually just come in and fix that and just help the company deliver that message to the market, and the rest takes care of itself. Most companies don't do it because they have this, like, I don't know, it's kind of like a fear of exposing themselves or bringing it to the market. But once you overcome that and you start to make consistent offers and you find creative ways to deliver it, there's a big performance increase.
Yeah, very interesting. I want to get a take of somebody here who's like a creative, like Yvonne here. You've obviously been in these sprints or these pitch meetings or meeting with customers who start like building this out. And we're talking about content and creative that works, that gets launched, and people love that, right? What do you feel happens when, every company, you ask them, do you want to go viral? No one's going to say no. Everybody's
Yeah,
going to say
exactly.
like, heck yeah. Like, yeah, I want to go viral. I want this thing to be popular and to do this. but, but when you get into these pitch meetings or when you go into the branding, to the planning sessions rather, or the strategy, it's all vanilla, right?
Mhm.
They want viral, but what they want you to produce is vanilla. What's causing that? Like, how do you deal with that sort of, okay, you want to go here, but you want to go the opposite direction in terms of what you want to do. You're never going to get to this part. How do you deal with that stuff? Or at least tell us a story of how you encountered that in the past.
Well, most of the time, I try to make the client, or in this case, the decision makers, part of the creative process as well. So I want to put them in the shoes of the audience, trying to make them envision what the audience is going to feel when they see the campaign that we're prepping for them, so that I can see the potential, and I can like make sure that they understand that maybe what they're looking at in their heads or what they're planning by themselves works for them, but not for the current audience. So in this type of scenario, which is the advertising or the marketing scenario, the ideology of make something for yourself that looks good for yourself and it's gonna pop, like it's gonna be viral, it's gonna be a hit, doesn't necessarily apply in this case, because maybe you're the CEO of a shampoo company that I don't know, makes your hair grow faster, but you're not bald, so you're not your target audience. I mean, my analogy is not the best, but basically, you're not your target audience
No,
yourself,
I like it.
so
Yeah.
you necessarily not are not going to understand how to take that message over to them, to your target audience. So you need to have that analysis to say, okay, what's your customer looking for in your product? Why are they choosing you? And then how to visually or by any other means have that message delivered to them, which again is not for you, the CEO, the creator of the company. It's for your client to actually feel the need for your services or your product, right? So when that point of view is changed for them, they actually start to understand and leverage the expertise that we offer them, right? So there's
Exactly.
always that little friction at the beginning when they have, like, imagine someone that has an idea for an ad developed from many years ago, and now that he's the CEO of the company, has the money or the ability to do it, or to hire a company, an agency to do it, and then the agency turns you down because it's ideally not the best way to portray your product. There's that friction always. But once you nurture them and once you say, okay, if you're going to sell this, here's a bunch of campaigns that have proven to be working in the past for different products, but there's a difference between what they ambition at the beginning and what actually works, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if they are creative, if they're creative themselves, or if you have an amazing team of creatives, maybe that could be transformed into an idea that actually works. So we don't have to fully deviate from the original idea. It just needs to be systematically planned for, so that it works and it's not a complete flop.
That makes me really think about how like there's this really I'm a big fan of Rory Sutherland, right? And he's chairman of Ogilvy, a huge behavioral science slash advertising agency in the world. Uh, and he always says that, you know, when it comes to value creation, there's two ways, and there's no economic, disparity between this, meaning either one of them will produce that value, right? You're creating value, you're optimizing for it, but there's really no economic difference. On a spreadsheet, if it's $1 million, it'll show $1 million on both ends. You can make it work. And one of the things is you can find out what people want and then work out a really clever way to supply it. Or you can work out how you can supply it, right? But also figure out a really clever way of making people want it.
Mhm.
And if you can do either one of those or both, but there's really no economic difference, right? And so the question becomes, most companies are the ones supplying it. They know that there's a need for this particular thing, so they're supplying it. But the clever way of making people want it is the thing that I think content and creatives tries to solve, because you're targeting Homo sapiens, humans, people. But when it comes to the decision makers, again, I'm going to go back to those decision makers. They're they're really looking at a fictitious Homo economicus character. You know what I mean? Like, here's a persona that, the lifetime value of this person is X, and they're going to make decisions here if I do this. But that freaking persona doesn't really exist. It's not really a real person. You know what I mean? And so they're targeting, for the logical people who make these decisions, like the CFOs, CEOs, accountants. They're kind of thinking about a different audience set. Like you were saying, like they're not the audience, but they're kind of, this is my audience set, the Homo economicus. And when you go to the creatives, they're trying to target Homo sapiens. So how do you align those things? Like, what's your advice for, companies so that they align those two things and you remove as much of that friction from the beginning?
It's really about the personas, but the lifetime value is important, and that's for the people based in the logic, and then we take that and dive deeper into what are they feeling? What stage are they at in their life? Do they have kids? Are they married? Like from there, the stories start to emerge, and then we can better target them. Like if they are nostalgic, we'll take a kind of design that reminds them of their childhood. We'll go that deep into the persona to see, okay, like what do they relate to? What are they gonna see and be like, oh, that looks familiar. That is interesting. The hook and the visual hook that we try to do is always based on who is it that we're talking to, and that will produce the best creative. So people want to see themselves in what they watch. They want to see their friends, their family, their region. It's important. So that's how we would bridge it.
Yeah, I think it's I get worried when I'm speaking to decision makers who are seeking, your help or your professional expertise, and their requirement for the content and to creative to be launched or for them to invest in it is that they would either drive it or they would like it. It really worries me, when that happens, because I go, most of them will come to you and then you go, oh, content is non-existent or it's crap, right? But the requirements for us to do business together is, I have, like, if I'm the decision maker says, well, I've got to like it or I've got to drive it. And then
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and in my head, I start thinking, man, this person must go to, go to a barber or to your hairstylist. And this person must be like telling the person every step of the way. Like, okay, yeah, don't use the scissors that way. Do it this way.
Yeah, yeah.
And then,
Exactly.
yeah, cut it this way because I think you need to cut it this way. But they themselves really have not cut
They've
hair. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like
No, you're
going to your,
right.
yeah.
Uh,
It,
It actually reminds me of a story because, it's funny, the more we talked about it, but there is one of our clients, he's a good buddy of mine. He has an amazing community that he's growing, and he has a digital product. And this was 2 years ago that we met, and we had met for the first time to talk about scaling. This was something that was working for them and that they wanted to grow more. And there were other partners there that didn't want to pull the trigger. And essentially what ended up happening is that over time, the partners kind of split, and the one of them started his own thing. And, I reached out, and 48 hours later, the deal was closed, and we were on our way to mapping the whole content strategy, the whole funnel out. And that's just how quick is 2 years of, you know, if you that's pretty much what it was. I mean, that kind of resentment can build, and if you don't pull the trigger, like people, it speaks to the group of people that you're working with, because there are people in your circle that are hyper performers. They want to scale to the next level. They want to chase that additional market share. And for those people that work in a team that where that doesn't happen, that can create some friction. So
and how do you guys deal with how do you deal with that type of client or customer or prospect where man, I want to make this happen. We've got a really great idea, but the caveat is they it needs to be something that they like, and whatever they like w- isn't the thing that's gonna work.
I mean, just because we work in the creative doesn't mean we can't back it up with hard numbers, because what we try to do is we just show them, hey, this is the gap in the market that we see. You're just targeting this one person because that's who you think your ideal customer is. But in reality, there's five shades of that that you can go after with more precise messaging and better content and things that are more geared towards those personas. And from there, it's like you're not scaling, vertically, you're scaling horizontally, right? Like by going after more. And usually, people are able to see reason, but if they don't, we just gotta let them go and wish them well.
and during these brainstorming meetings, what would be helpful, like for you, Yvonne, you deal with it on the account level and on the creative level. But when a customer, the business, right, the company goes to you and says, we really want to make this viral, right? We really want to make this popular, and we want people to eat this up and be be excited about it. But then all their ideas are really about, but we really don't want to offend anybody, and we want to keep it super corporate and on brand, if they do even have one. Sometimes they say they have a brand, but really they don't. Nobody knows about them. And so how do you deal with that? Like, what is your advice then? So when you're dealing with people who are like, we really want to be super successful, we want people to eat us up, we want great engagement, but then everything they want you to do is the complete opposite. It's like all vanilla stuff.
The companies and people in general should express their own values to the fullest. So let's take like Liquid Death, for example. Like that company, their Super Bowl ad was, a bunch of kids like having a huge rager with these like water cans. And it was so on brand. And if they would have toned that down, it wouldn't have worked as it did. But it's just about speaking your truth. So if you're building a brand that, I don't know, supports minorities, go lean into that to the fullest. Don't don't go half in. And it speaks to a lot of brands are technically people, right? So it's like they need to know themselves and lean into it to the fullest. If you're corporate, be extremely corporate. If not, go the route that you want to build. So if you want it to be hyper personalized and give the absolute best customer experience, well, do that, right? So yeah, that usually will solve it, because people will know you for something. They need to know you for something.
Yeah, exactly. So I was gonna use an analogy, which is you don't see a priest giving rock concerts or heavy metal concerts on Sundays or Saturdays. So exactly what Antonio said is focus or develop what you're already good at, right? Because it's gonna look weird that you're aiming to be viral with something that worked viral for a different kind of niche, but you want to apply it just because it had a trillion views on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, and you want that same kind of success with something that doesn't really speak to your audience, right? So usually when that's the case, we gather a few examples of somewhat viral things, but not necessarily viral like air breathing viral things, which are I don't know. I'm not into the viral campaign like myself, but I could speak for like a fat. There's an overweight guy that moves his belly with a little like Indian song, which is pretty viral everywhere right now.
Oh
But
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you already got it. Okay, yeah, some skip it up. Yeah, that one. But some yeah, my wife listens to that every single day. But that's viral and that's great. And they've been using that. So he's visiting some restaurants and actually doing the dance with the restaurant owner, and that's it. But that doesn't mean that one, you're gonna hire that guy, or two, you're gonna imitate that guy. I mean, it can work, but if I don't know if your food is
It's a great
healthy,
example.
you're not gonna hire a guy like that, or you're not gonna implement that type of music because it already goes to an overweight person, right? I mean, it's great for I don't know fast food or something like that. That doesn't the calories don't necessarily mean an issue, but there needs to be there doesn't have to be a discrepancy between what you're aiming to achieve by going viral and what your actual brand is, because then it's gonna be a great discrepancy.
And that adds a whole layer too, because there's like cultural impact and like our own perceptions of things. And it's like, yeah, that all has to be taken into account. And that's a great example, actually. So
Yeah, and again, the targeting piece, figuring out it's just it's in opposite directions a lot of the times. People want that virality, right? And that's the result that people all crave, but they just don't have what it takes to go. Like to them, it's like I want the result, but I don't have what it takes to go. Like I don't have the. I'm just gonna I'm gonna say mind it. Like they don't have what it takes to go and actually make things viral. And I think it's just the willingness isn't as strong as their desire to get the results, right? And so this is a topic as well, kind of segue because you guys talking about like ideas and all of these things, and for example, for Channel Auto, we've connected to OpenAI, and we utilize Chat GPT for certain clients. But one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is it's Chat GPT is like in everybody's tongue right now, right? Everybody's trying to talk about it and say, "Oh man, it can create copy and this." A lot of people don't realize Chat GPT, AI, which is really just a buzz term, it's not going to come up with new ideas,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Like
Exactly. You
it's
still
just
need, and
yeah,
that's the currency, right? That like, how do you take all of these ingredients and just that idea? It's funny because one of the people that we collaborate with, he did so there was a company that hired him to do like a culture video for the company, praising people that have been at certain levels, like, so 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years. And he did like a full on rap battle video. And it's just like that. And he did all the voices and he created everything. And it was like a masterpiece, honestly. Like the energy in the room when people were doing it. And he had a bunch of cultural shout outs and everything. But basically, like, you can't plug that into a machine, like, that's never really going to happen. And if it does, like, you're still going to need the guy to say, hey, we're going to turn this announcement video into a rap video, and it's going to have these components. You still need that amazing creativity. So yeah, I even think the fad is kind of starting to fade a little bit. We're on the tail end of it, I feel. But yeah.
like the thing that I would say is we've tested it, we've tried it. There was a couple of customers who were innovative enough to go say, let's go ahead and connect our after hours bot, because we comes with our platform comes with after hours and automation, and let's connect that, and let's let it learn, let do that. And what they found was, I said, oh great, perfect, let's explore. I love these tests and these experiments. But like 3 days in, the companies were like, no, no, we don't like it because, it's saying what our competitors are saying, and it's really not that creative, and it's not, because they were like trying to get more leads to convert into appointments. And, the bot was essentially saying what they're saying, which their call center was saying. So that, I guess, that could something as of an efficiency win, but it wasn't really saying anything different than everybody else. And so when a customer would say, why can't you just give me an estimate online without coming over to my house to give me a quote or whatever? It was still saying the same things, and they weren't really getting in the
Right.
conversion.
Right.
I think this misconception that people have, like, oh, if we just use AI because we're lazy or we don't want to invest in creative or content or new ideas, maybe it will solve it. But the reality is they can't. I mean, even when we tell them, look, it's not going to come up with new ideas. It can compile what's out there, and maybe in a structured, organized way. But Chat GPT is not going to give you new ideas, and it's not going to go and say, look, everybody else is doing this. Here's what I'll do. I'll respond in a different way because these particular sets of humans, right, would probably respond differently. And that novel idea, that ability to do that is just not available with Chat GPT or even, or whatever's out there with NLP. But how have you guys experienced that with customers, like kind of just coming into a fad and they go like, oh, that's easy, let's do that, instead of like spending all this time, money, and resources coming up with something really of a good idea or something that
Yeah.
people
I
would
mean,
really
AI is
want?
great to kind of get into the market quickly at a low cost, but in terms of performance, it's just not anywhere near being able to provide that. So getting started, great. Do want to do it quick and dirty? Perfect. But if you really want to take it to the next level, and because at the end of the day, even if ChatGPT was able to do one thing, you need a whole plan. Like and it's not just a one-time video, it's a 3-month, 3-year plans. Like, it's you have to have that roadmap ahead. So yeah.
And what, like, final thing here, what is it that you think is going to happen with regards to content? Lots of people, including our platform, one of the only platforms that really do videos everywhere. But what do you think is going to happen to a lot of companies, that are now starting to learn that, look, this is the world of TikTok and shorts and videos. People don't want to read. It's a sad thing
Oh
to
yeah,
say here in the
yeah.
US, right? Or in many places across the world, but they'll watch a video. What do you think's going to happen to many companies in the next year or two here? Are people going to migrate to videos and there's just going to be more videos out there? Or do you still see people kind of like, nah, we're not getting into that fad. They think it's a fad and it's just not something that they're going to get into.
So first of all, at this point, and even with the pandemic, it was a wild growth in digital content. So if at this point people still think that short form videos or digital content is not the way to go to market your brand, they're gonna basically die eventually. The change is always hard. Happened with Netflix, happened with IBM, happened with a lot of things. Happened in the 1983 video game crash. So yeah, changing into that total digital platform for people that are accustomed to advertise on TV, are accustomed to advertise on magazines, it's gonna be hard when they're basically out of the cloud and they realize that this is the way to go into the future. And like I said, it was more than obvious in the pandemic where nobody can go out, nobody can even record or film a single professional ad without like having a lot of safety measures and everything that prohibited them to actually making those consistently.
There's a universal format that has emerged. It's the first time in history that you can make one video in one certain way and it can be posted to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the platforms. You can still do different sizes and things like that, but when it comes to short form, and when we say short, I mean we're talking up to 10 minutes here, even a little bit longer sometimes. That format has like emerged as being the format. So it's like, if companies want to invest in content, video content, it should be one of the first things that is considered, that real TikTok format. Maybe it's not good for the brand, like good for your brand, but it should be considered at least.
Yeah, there's some brands that actually like they envision things like an infomercial or like a 30-minute tape of explaining what the product is. But
Yeah.
sometimes a 2 minute, 1 minute, or even a 3 minute video, or like you said, 10 minutes, it's more than enough to show everything that the customer or the potential customer needs to know in a nice and neat format.
I'm trying to find this song that I want to go and share with people, which is, I don't know if you guys have heard the song.
Oh yeah.
You guys know what the song is, right? So
Yeah.
so so that song is played when if you've ever been in any neighborhood where you got that ice cream truck, I mean, people now kind of just like think, oh, there's an ice cream truck, that's the sound, right, that they play. It's called Green Sleeves. And that's a song. And if you don't know how that song was created, that the person who wrote that song is uh, Henry VIII. So Henry VIII, he wrote that song for Anne Boleyn. So if you know the story, Henry VIII saw Anne Boleyn, and Anne Boleyn at that time, right, was wearing this frock, this gown, and it had like this huge green sleeves. And so he wrote that song, you know, centuries ago, I guess, long, long time ago, before Twitter was around, or TikTok, or YouTube, right, or Facebook, or Chat GPT. But that song went viral because people hear that thing and they like the story, and it's now in ice cream trucks and serial killers, I guess, like that song. Um, you know, pedophiles and anyway, all this nasty stuff that came around with it. But that went viral. But you think about, like, there was no TikTok, there was no Facebook, there was no Chat GPT at that time. It just went viral because people heard that, and then they talked about it, and then it got transferred from one person to the other. And I think that, yes, this whole thing about shorts and videos. And I really feel like, yes, you should consider that, because that's the medium in which you put forth your content, which people will consume or provide consideration. But if you don't have good content or creative, don't freaking do it. You're just going to be doing what everybody else is doing, and it's just noise at that point, right? And I think this is one of those things where, again, a lot of people don't realize how easy it is, especially when you work in industries where, or in a vertical where your competitors aren't investing in creative. Because that is the easiest, most innovative thing you could do, is investing in something that they're not, putting time, effort, right, resources, trusting the professionals, failing on it, calibrating it. Because while you're doing that and you're trying to create that virality, everybody else is still trying to do what everybody else is doing. And they could be doing TikTok videos, shorts as well, but you'd be the only one who'd have the content that people would actually want to see, to view, to consume, to follow, to subscribe. And it's amazing how, a lot of agencies know that this is the thing, and that's why they exist, for this creative. But there's obviously not a lot of customers out there, who are willing to do that. So I think, this is an interesting conversation, something that um will continue to happen. In closing, maybe you guys talk about really how, you guys could help some of these customers. I mean, you're not going to help everyone, but at least the people who are serious about going viral, or doing what their competitors aren't, like, how can they reach out to you guys?
Oh, they can hit us up at hosky.ca, book a demo, and we'll see if it's a good fit, and if not, it's totally cool. And we'll try to provide as much value up front as we can, and that's it.
All right, Iván, any shameless plug?
I mean, I don't have anything really interesting happening right now that being the account manager.
No,
Or
actually, I was gonna say I want to make an amendment to the record. Ivan and I have been working together for the last 2 years. I consider him a close friend and an ally in the battlefield. Pretty much my right hand. Like, everything goes through him. So yeah, I was nervous. Apologies.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
it's not good. It is part of.
Now you're gonna make me blush, man. Now you're gonna make me.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Hosky is wouldn't be the same without you. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's actually our first time co-starting together on a podcast. So still
good.
finding our
It's my first time in a podcast ever. So yeah,
Definitely.
the
Yeah,
nervous guy is me.
we're,
So
we're
yeah.
making history right here, ladies and gentlemen. So I think it's a really interesting conversation. We're gonna have you guys on a few times this year. You guys are one of our partners here at Channel Auto, one of our preferred partners, especially for the creative side. You guys help many of our customers with their, the videos that we can deliver on text, which we can only do, or only ones who can do that, and everywhere else. And I think those shorts and those videos really create that lift, because, I mean, that's, if nobody else is doing it, you're the only one doing it, then obviously your messages are getting viewed, watched, played, while everybody else is still sending messages that people are reading. That really does make me sad. It makes me kind of think about, like, the future. You know what I mean? Like, when people are like, I'd rather watch a TikTok video or a YouTube, for a how-to, than to actually read a book or a manual. But it's kind of sad, isn't it? Like, if people
Ah,
don't want to read. It's interesting how, and again, Google and Bard and their thing, again, going to shorts and videos for search and stuff like this. And I was talking to a couple of companies. We deal with a couple of these customers together, Antonio and Ivan. And some of the easy tips that we go and say, hey, why don't we just, you have this huge blog, too long, didn't read. Why don't you just create a video of that, summarizing that, so people can actually watch it, and then you can have some snippets. And then they go, oh yeah. But it never occurred to them, like, that's why they're, maybe you're not ranking, maybe the people, because all you had to do was create a video summary of what the hell it is that you wrote, plaster it on there, put it on your YouTube channel, and that's a good way to do it. And automatically Google will help you rank, because now you're the one that people that's the blog or that's the article or that's the how-to that people enjoy, not because you wrote it. You have that for search and for crawling or whatever, but you had that video summarizing the damn thing, in small little pieces. This is really cool, guys. I really appreciate you guys hopping on this one. We're definitely going to have you guys a couple, for those of you guys, who like our content, if you don't, please don't follow us. Tell us to go and better, right? Tell us to F off and say, man, and that makes us better. You know what I mean? Really,
Exactly.
I prefer that. Like, if we don't have stuff, like, don't subscribe, don't follow us, right? Don't even bother. Let us know. In fact, be nasty in the comments. I love it. It's just, I'd rather have that than get ghosted, to be honest with you.
Oh,
You know what I
100%.
mean? Yeah. So
Yeah,
anyway,
totally.
and for those of you guys who are fans of of what you hear here, connect with Höski here, Höski.ca with Antonio and Iván. And for everything else about channel automation, you can go ahead and check out our website at channelautomation.com. Looking forward to having you guys back on in a couple of episodes. We'll see
Thanks for
everybody
having
else.
us, Vic.
Yeah, no
Thank you for having
problem.
us.
For everybody else, we'll see you in the next episode.